Welcome to another episode of the Risking It All podcast. Joined by our usual hosts as always. This is myself and Brian McGill, Jolly Media Marketing. Big thank you from us so far. I don't even know what episode we're on now, but
18, I think this episodes, I want to say, maybe 19.
Which is absolutely brilliant. Thanks for your support, everyone. And we've got another fantastic guest we're going to speak to today. So we're joined by Gary McLellan of G33 Media.
Welcome, Gary.
Thanks very much.
Thanks for coming.
So Gary, we actually met, it was probably a couple of years ago through Javier Peralta's coaching network, and Javier's going to be on the podcast in a few weeks as well. And we're still talking to this day, mate, so thanks for putting up with me through that time.
Thanks for putting up with me.
And I've been excited to just get you to sit down with us and tell us a wee bit about your story. So as we always like to do before we get into G33 Media, because I've got a million questions about videography, talk to us a little bit about your sort of backstory, how you got to G33 Media.
I was waiting for you to go, let's go back to the start there. Like, I'm thinking I'm on James English for a second.
I normally do that, I'm trying to mix it up.
So I never actually started doing, filmmaking and stuff like that. I actually had no idea what I wanted to do at a school for a bit. I'd kind of just, genuinely, I just done eeny, meeny, miny, mo
right.
On the sheet where it was like all the different subjects you can do at uni or whatever, and I landed on psychology.
Right.
And I was like, well, I guess that's what I'm doing then, because the careers advisor, I kind of did. I didn't really know I wanted to do like filmmaking or video or anything like that, but I kind of knew I was always obsessed with like films and things like that, and I loved like the Lord of the Rings behind the scenes. Like I'd always watch. I had the extended editions and it had the additional discs that had the appendices, but it had all the behind the scenes stuff, and I always found it dead fascinating even when I was like 10, 11 or whatever. So I was like, how do you get into doing that, to like the careers advisor? And it's like, they're just basically like, that's not a real job, son. Like, I'm like, how do I get into like making like dressed up as an orc and stuff like that, or like being on the cameras or that? But they're just like, yeah, that's not an actual thing.
Where did you live when you were younger?
I grew up in Steps.
Steps, right, okay.
Yeah. So
what school did you go to?
It was Our Ladies High in Cumberland Road.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
and how were you in school? Were you a toe rag, or did you behave yourself?
No, I was quite quiet, to be honest, at school. Yeah. I just kind of kept to myself. I had like a wee group of pals and that. I was just a wee bit nerdy, I suppose.
Aye.
At school.
Did you dress up as an orc at Our Ladies High?
No, I wasn't that good. The costumes, that. I wasn't really a loudmouth or anything. I never really got into bother. I just kind of kept to myself. It was quite boring at school or whatever, I suppose. But
did you do any sort of, obviously Lord of the Rings seems to be a light bulb moment for you in regards to filmography, but did you do any sort of did you do drama in school or anything like that? Were you into any?
No, I kind of wish I did now though, in hindsight. But that's the thing, like drama at school, if you picked that, it's like you were a gimp or whatever. That's just I get to like.
I was a gimp in school. I did drama.
Did you do drama?
Did you?
Aye, I did.
I can't imagine
stuff like
that.
You think back and it's just like so daft that you'd care about stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I should have just done it, but
I think in our era though, like that definitely was a thing that played into your head, where like your reputation was more important than your future. Whereas nowadays, I think that has changed for the better, for what I can gather. Like I spoke a couple of episodes ago about being at a wee foodies festival and how there was a wee One Direction tribute act on, and I was like, they must get slaughtered in school. And the folk that I was there with were like, no, when we were at school you would get slaughtered, but nowadays that's the cool thing today. And I was like, well, good, that's a change for the better, I guess. So so did you stick about in school then, do your 5th and 6th year?
Yeah, I done that. I done really well on my standard grades. I got 8 1s, but then that made me a wee arrogant bastard, because I was like, I genuinely was like, I may as well have said I was an arrogant bastard anyway, but like I barely studied for them, because I was always just somebody who easily procrastinated and stuff. And, but I managed to do that in the standard grades, so because of that I was just like, all right, I don't need to study then. But then I went into 5th year and got a reality check when it was hires, and I think I got like an A, B, 2 C's and a fail or something like that.
Right, okay.
Which was one of those ones where it's like, especially because the school had the expectations that like, well, if this person got 8 1s, all the 8-1s people get 5 A's, then it was just me, but like I just fucked them out in 5th year, to be honest. But
so was 6th year a scramble to then recover the
6th
position
year,
then?
I just kind of recovered things a wee bit, but I wasn't really academic, as daft as that sounds, just to, even though I got the 8-1s or whatever, it's like I kind of realised since as well, and I think that's something as well when I look back where it's the careers advisor, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I think it's a big thing now where like everybody gets pushed into university, but it's not really for everyone, I don't think, and I don't think it would have been for me if I'd go back. Do you know what I mean? I don't think I would have done it, but I'm glad I done it because I got to kind of just experience getting pissed up at Strathclyde Uni and Union for a wee bit and discover myself or whatever, I don't know. So I don't regret anything, but like got dropped out of uni and stuff like that, but there's things where I'm just like, I think that's like the big push at schools, and I know it looks better for the school the more people go to uni and things, but I don't think that's necessarily for everyone. And I've also found as well the big motivator for it was always salary expectation, like, oh, if you go to uni you're more likely to earn more money, and I'm sure that's what the stats would show anyway, but I find that since I've got into business, most of the people I interact with didn't go to uni and they earn the most money. Do you know what I mean? It's
an interesting
weird
dynamic, that, isn't it? And was it psychology that you done at uni then?
So I'd done that. I went to Strathclyde. I got into psychology, even though I got a D in psychology. I don't know how that happened. And Strathclyde's quite a decent uni as well. So I'd done that, and then you had to pick a couple other subjects, and I picked one. It was law and politics, and then you drop one of them 2nd year. But I was like, I quite like law now. So then my head was turned to that kind of temporarily, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll do that instead. But then as soon as it was like work experience and stuff coming up, I'm just like, nah, I don't think this is for me either. So I kind of had a bit of a crisis at that point where I was like, I don't actually know what I want to do with myself. But I did know what I wanted to do with myself. It's just more, again, the expectations of other people, I suppose, that I'd built in my head about like, oh, well, everyone else that I'm pals with is going to get a degree, they're going to get a master's, and they're going to be, you know, professionals and that, and then it would just be me kind of scratching my head. Or I was worried about, oh, what are my mum and dad going to think? You know, if I drop out, they get expectations. But the reality was it's not that they didn't care. Like, my dad was a bit like, what you doing? Like, do you know what to think about this a bit more? But I was like, I don't want to do it. I know I've been doing it for the last 2 years, but he was kind of the opinion like, oh, I should stay and just finish it. But or it'll have been a waste of time. You know, the last 2 years was a waste of time. But I was just kind of like, well, if I do another 2 years, I'm just wasting another 2 years of my time because I'm still not going to do it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to go and become a lawyer. It's not what I want to do with my life. So that's kind of how I had a wee bit of a light bulb moment over it, where it was like him saying I might be wasting my time, but
I suppose it's your perception of what wasting time is. You had a different perception of that, and you said you knew what you wanted to do during that time period. So what was in your head?
I just was like thinking back to the thing where it was the careers advisor. I just kept thinking about, I wanted to be in the film industry. That's what I wanted to do. I wasn't really sure. I obviously had the kind of big aspirations that, I'd love to be like a film director, but you know, there's not really a career path for that, which I eventually discovered anyway, but you kind of have to just go make stuff. But I was like, I do want to work some way in that, but I ended up leaning towards camera, which has led to what I'm doing now, obviously.
So you mentioned about that. That's an interesting one, because like, how do you become a film director? Is it just independent films and build up for there?
You just have to do it genuinely. As daft as that sounds, you have to just. It's like I was speaking to Cammy just before it about that guy I know, James Price. It's like that's his whole thing. It's like you just need to go. You can't wait in funding. You can't wait in like there's no a career path for it where you work your way through the band to salaries. You just have to go make stuff with people, be creative, get anyone you can to help you out, and then you go for there. Which I've done a bit of, and I've made some like shorts and stuff, but I've kind of more found myself focus on the corporate side of things now, because that's where you ultimately pay the bills, isn't it? So,
exactly. Can I ask a question, maybe just tap them into some of the stuff that you've spoke about already? Maybe some of it ties in with a bit of kind of parental pressure, but even before that with the careers officer, do you think that folk that have an interest in, I can't believe I'm going to use this term, but like a career in the arts, I don't know if what you do would be defined as like working in the arts almost.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think that racks about people's mind, where they think, I don't really even want to talk to people about that because I know what I'm going to hear, that isn't a real job, that isn't a real career, you need to figure out what you want to do with your life. and I'll not ask you to speak for any sort of societal position, just share your own with me. Do you think that held you back in some way initially? Like,
yeah, I'd say so, because that's what I was saying about at school. I think, you know, looking back on that, I was influenced a lot by other people and like, oh, what people might think of me. You know, that was always the kind of pressure of it, I suppose. It's like, I think I've always kind of had that personality where I'm a people pleaser and things like that as well. So I want to be, you know, I want to make sure I'm not looking too daft or anything as well. So, yeah, I just think it's just what you were saying. I just don't think the arts are taken seriously. It's like I think it's also comes down to, you know, the arts were always kind of looked at years and years ago as like it's only for well-off people as well. Do you know what I mean? It's
or
not meant to be
hippies that don't care about
Yeah.
making money.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. But it's something that like the film industry just on its own is like part of the kind of arts sector, I suppose. Like brings hundreds of millions of pounds into the economy. So it's like it is something that like should be taken seriously, you know, and it kind of is starting to be. But it's.
I was going to say, like, do you think videography and filming is a lot more? Maybe if you look at it 10 years ago when YouTube was just kind of coming to mainstream. But nowadays you've got YouTube, TikTok, smartphones, everybody's pulling out their phone taking videos. Do you think it's more receptive to be in the video industry?
I think that's why things are kind of changing a wee bit now, though. It's taken a bit more seriously with video in particular, just because people are spending like their entire day like that on their phone. All they do is watch videos, whether it's TikTok or Instagram. Instagram was a photo app, but now it's really a video app. It's all reels, you know. That's what gets people staying on it, because all the apps are all designed ultimately to keep people on it for as long as possible. Do you know what I mean? And that video does that more than photos. So
they're pretty good at that, by the way. I've even downloaded apps to stop me going on apps. Do you know what I mean? Trying to get
I remember
off it.
he said to me, I seen something coming up his phone, and I was like, what the hell is that? And it was like, I've got a thing on my phone that stops me from accessing apps, but it was like growing a forest for you or some nonsense like that. I was like, there was irony there, because it's like a gamified way of stopping you from going into these apps, but it's almost like a gamified app that's stopping you going into the apps. Like,
what was it? One of them's like Opal or something, I think, as well. I tried that, but yeah,
it's like it's just a way to stop you just grabbing your phone and get into it, because I get distracted with like anybody else with all that stuff. But
all right, well, bringing it back to you and your story, I guess. So you were doing law, decided that wasn't for you, had a chat with your dad, and kind of, I guess, had a bit of an internal burn around, I really want to explore that filmmaking piece. What was the first step? Can you remember a singular moment where you thought, I'm going to pick up a camera here and do something? Or was there a step before that where you thought, I need to get some training under my belt?
So I did actually go, after I'm like, uni's no for everyone, I did actually go do another degree, but like film school.
Right, okay.
Oh, right,
so
nice.
because I'd done 2 years, my whole thought, even though that shouldn't have been the main motivating factor, I was like, right, I can do film, but like I procrastinate too much to be like, because there is the whole thing where it's like, I could just go watch YouTube videos and teach myself, but the reality is I'm not that kind of person. Like I just wouldn't be able to focus. So I was like, I need some element of structure, but I started looking into, I'd already looked into stuff before I was like, right, I'm going to drop out. Like I wasn't just like, I'm dropping out and then I'll just figure it out. But I seen there was like the Royal Conservatoire, which I think is like different now or whatever. But that was like a 4-year degree. They're all 4 years obviously, but I seen one, it was SAE Institute, and it was a 2-year degree where it was just like express, like still a honours bachelor's degree, but you just didn't get summers off. You didn't get your 6-month summer like you do in the other uni courses. But I was like, all right, well that works, because the main thing for me was I was like, I've got 2 years of SAS left, so
Yeah, go for it.
I can still get on the piss up or whatever. Maybe not the main reason, but you know, so then I went with that just to my mum and dad. I was just like, look, this is what I want to do. I just want to give it a go. And it turned out they were actually very supportive, and I shouldn't ever have thought otherwise. Do you know what I mean? But my dad obviously had the kind of, was going to be like, they weren't just going to be like, all right, that's fine. Like my dad obviously was like, but you need to think about it. But then it's just, they were fine with it anyway. So that was the first kind of step of realising like people's expectations, a lot of it's just like what you make up for yourself. Do you know what I mean? It's not necessarily what people actually think Do you know what I mean? It's
I think there's a real lesson there, no even just for young people, right? But pretty much like loads of guests we've had on this podcast, and then even in our business life, right? We'll maybe get people that come to us and say, we're not getting enough work, we need you to run paid ads for us, and we'll go, cool, let's do a wee audit and see what they're up to. And you go into their Facebook and it's like, they've not done a post in September 2019, right? And it's like, why is there no organic material? Oh, I don't like putting my face out there. It's just that fear of what other people are going to think of you that holds people back, even in their adult life. Even, you know, a lot of the times you go, business people are just in the mindset that they don't give a shit about other people. But that's not always necessarily the case. Like, a lot of people carry that forward into adulthood and just can't get at it. They can't get over that crippling thing that holds them back because they're worried about what other people might say or think. But it's an internal voice. It's just a voice in your head, in my experience. You know, for the most part, people actually don't give a shit what you're doing and what you're up to. And with your parents in particular, I'm sure like most parents, they just want you to be happy, as cliche as that is today. They just want you to find something that you're going to enjoy and no hate and be miserable in.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So look at me, 10 minutes into meeting you, I'm speaking for your parents. All right, mate, so 2-year degree, you managed to get yourself through it, a bit of fun in between, I'm guessing, and the union.
What was that like, actually? Because you're saying that there was basically a 4-year degree condensed into 2. How challenging was that? Was it all right, or did you...
It was
struggle?
full on.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I discovered after making this decision, where it was like, right, I've really thought this out and looked into this 2-year degree course. Turns out it costs money.
Okay.
I learned daftly on the first day, and I was like, how's that? Unis don't cost money in Scotland, but this is like the one uni that does cost money.
Okay.
And it turned out it was $7,000 a year because it was, and it's because it was like a technicality, but it was like an English uni technically, but they had a campus up here.
Fly.
Right, because that's what English students will pay every year, isn't it?
So because it costs $7,000 a year, my mum and dad only made the money. I'd made that decision, so it's not like they weren't like, oh, here's $7,000, son, and then here's another $7,000 next year. I'm like, I was working part-time jobs anyway, so it was quite full on for 2 years. I was having to knock my plan in the course, but also work like quite a lot of evenings and in different restaurants and things like that. So
just pay for the gig.
Yeah, but it was, and then it turned out my whole SAS loan that I'm like, oh, that's more time enjoying myself with my mates or going away on holidays or whatever. It's like, nah, that just all went into the course. But that's the decision I made, so I had to commit to it, you know, and that was that. So
do you know what? This may be an unpopular opinion, right? But I have shared it before. I do think that it's a complete double-edged sword, the whole free uni thing in Scotland, right? Because I think that, and you touched upon it earlier, schools push you down that direction, right? They just do. Like, as you say, I think it, you know, leads to them getting shinier grades, and the more and more people they can pass on to uni, the better they look. And I think that sometimes it's just too easy for folk to go, I don't know what I want to do, uni's free, I'll just go to uni. Whereas I think if there was even like a nominal fee, it would really force people to have a proper think about, is this really what I want to do here? If I'm going to foot the bill $3-4 grand for something, whether it's a course in videography or a degree in something else, I sometimes can't get away from the fact that it feels like it's just too easy for people because it's free.
I do get where you're coming from, but I do disagree because I just think it comes back to what I was saying earlier about kind of access, I suppose. But there's a lot of people I went to high school with or grew up with that have went on to be, they were bright as anything, and they wouldn't have been able to go to uni if they had to pay for it as well. So I think it's, and it's the whole thing, like I was saying, where it's the access to the arts in particular. You know, working class people are no meant to have access to that. It's meant to be for people who are wealthy, I suppose, classically, you know. And that's why it's kind of, I do get where you're coming from though, where it's like it gives a level of commitment, I suppose. Because I do agree in that, there's probably like thousands of people leaving school and they're just going to uni because their pals are going, because that's exactly what I've done pretty much. That's the only reason I went.
I think I'm in the same boat as you, and also I think it's quite sad when you hear about people who go to uni and work so hard and become qualified, but then they leave with like 60, 70, 80 grand in debt. Like, I don't know, there's something quite unsettling about that for me, where they're probably going to spend, I don't know, the first 20 years of their working life paying that back. So there's, I get what you mean, though, about the intent.
I'll never pay my student loan off, I don't think, because even though it's not that big, even though uni's meant to be free here, because I was looking at it the other day and the amount I actually get pay out for it, I was working out with the interest that's on it. It's like, it's just adding more interest every year than I actually pay.
The percentage it comes out, your wages,
but
really
it's maybe
small.
my own fault for being like efficient with things, I suppose you could say. But I'm just like, but then that's like the best, as they always say, it's like that's the best loan you'll ever get, because it's like you're not going to get chased up for it. I mean, it's basically just like an extra tax in your paycheck, I suppose. But it's not ideal still having 20 grand a debt sitting there kind of hanging over you. But
as you say, it's no crippling you in any way, shape or form. And what was your first step after you qualified?
So I finished that course. Made like a short film for it. It's on YouTube. I'll maybe plug that after. I don't know. Maybe if I'm, because I used to be embarrassed about it for a bit.
Plug it now. What's it
Thursdays, son. I'll send you the link. You can stick it in the description.
Yeah, we'll get it in the description.
But finished with that, and then what did I do? I worked in a restaurant still for a bit, and then I managed to get I was struggling for a bit. I think it was maybe like a year before I got my first kind of real job, I suppose, that was linked to the actual course, where I worked for a property marketing company in Glasgow.
Right, okay.
So I was quite excited to get that, like, first job, like that. And then,
so would you get in video properties that were up for sale,
it was
essentially?
just like video tours, essentially. So
right, okay.
They basically done, it was like, I done the videos, they had a photographer and an extra person who done the floor plans, so it was just like super quick.
Right.
But I only done that for 2 months, and then get let go.
Oh, right. Okay. Was that, what year was that?
2020?
I was just going to ask, was it around about COVID, or did that have an impact in it? Or
in fact, actually, it would have been during COVID, so that would have been what,
2019
late
is when it started. 2020,
yeah. So I think it was September. I think I got the job. It was maybe like August 2020 or something. But during COVID, they were doing really well, because they hired like 3 new people, including me.
Aye.
Because nobody could go view properties, I think is what it was. So like, I think it was like Retty was their one client, but I'll get to that later. But they must have been, I think they were doing every property for them, whether it's like the West End branch, who were going out to, Drimmen to film big properties and things like that, just all over Glasgow every day, like 3 or 4 properties a day.
Right.
But then I got let go after 2 months, because 2 months in, turned up on I think it was a Wednesday, and we had this big whiteboard, and it had all the properties. The boss came in every morning before everyone and wrote up all the addresses, and it was usually like 10, 12 properties a day. And then I came in, there was 2.
Oh shit.
And I was like, all right, we've got a quiet day today then. We're just kind of having a laugh, like, oh, that's brilliant, we'll just get on with things and edit whatever we're doing. But it was always a 24-hour turnaround, so if we went out and filmed places, it had to be edited that day.
Right.
Whether it be me coming back and late in the afternoon I'd edit a video, or there'd be people in the office who were just editors who would just be sitting all day editing videos and photos and things. But there was only 2 properties on the board. And then the day after that, so
just quiet, just a downtime.
Just dried up.
Right, okay.
And then the next day there was 1. And then the day after that, I get an email, a text or an email, and it was like, like, you can have the day off tomorrow. And then the Friday I get an email that, you've been let go. So I think it's like you've been sacked, pretty much, because the work's dried up. But it's because they only had 1 client.
Right, okay, aye.
As far as I knew, anyway.
Aye.
But that was like a lesson for me. That was like maybe the first lesson of business before I'd even started one, where I was like, they might have been, I don't know how much they would have been giving them, but if they had like 10 staff, and it was pretty crap pay, to be fair, but it was my first job, so it's like, you're obviously like, you just take what you can get. But still, paying that amount of staff, like, they must have been bringing in decent money. So but then their cash flow just completely.
Why do you think it dried up, thinking about it now?
Because restrictions get lifted, I'm pretty sure.
Right, okay.
So, got you.
Or it could just be that the property market, just there wasn't as many people selling that month or that week.
Yeah.
So it just meant they were like shit out of luck. There's no work. So
I actually I was having a think about that as you were chatting there around. I know that like big multinational companies will quite clearly have videographers and editors, but is there many businesses in your experience that have like in-house videography teams, or is it typically freelance that they'll bring people in and say, we've got a project, we'll pay you for it, and then off you pop?
Okay, I'm going to throw you a curveball now. I actually work for someone. I have my business, but I actually work for somebody in-house.
Right, okay.
So that came about as they were a client before. And I'd done a video for them really early on when I was just doing freelance things and getting experience. And then they called me in. They were like, "Oh, I need somebody as like an in-house guy because I'm doing so much video."
Right, okay.
So now through that company, they have 5 video guys in-house.
Right, okay. What do they do?
Training, basically, for companies. So the one I'm involved in anyway, and then there's another company in the office that does like property training and stuff like that. So but they really value in-house video because everything they do, they want filmed, they want documented, whether it's the events they're doing, so that it's part of like what they're selling to the clients, is they can go back and watch it, whether it's, you know, having regular social media content. I actually think since working in there, not just because of that, but it's the trend I'm seeing, but there's a lot of video guys are getting quite insecure recently. I've noticed, like, oh, you need to go with outside places, but I actually think the market's going in a way that it's going to be as important a role to have a videographer in your business as it is to have a finance department, to have like, because that's what people want now. Like they want to see the business. It's like the cliche, like, oh, they buy for the person. Or and I don't think that's always the case, but I do think that that's the trend that's going towards. But I still think there's a place, definitely, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing, for outsourcing, you know, whether it's big companies and stuff like that. But I do think there's a level of company where it's like you've got, you know, a small business where you've got 10 to 20 staff or whatever, or below 100 staff. There's definitely a place where I think videographers are going to be essential now, to be honest.
So that business is getting the best of both worlds with you, though, to be fair. So they've been quite astute. And have you seen a lot of businesses like that have like video ingrained in their culture? Because it sounds to them like everything they do evolves around video pretty much.
It's really uncommon. Like, I've not interacted with, like, none of my clients do it, which is why I work with them, obviously, because I've not got a video guy. But sometimes I've seen for other people I know that do, like you kind of, it's quite a small world, like the videography group in Glasgow. Like, you kind of know everyone and everyone follows everyone on Instagram. But I've kind of interacted with different people. They're like, they've done stuff for businesses where they've got a video guy, but it's like, it's just a bigger project. And it's not like they're going to hire a bunch of people in-house just for one big project or one advertising thing. So they'll bring people in from outside like that because they'll just know people. But
I get that, to be honest. Like, we are in the midst of, like, you know, what is it they say, attention's the new economy. And if I could have somebody follow me and video what I do every day, I would, just because it would make life easier, and I wouldn't need to sit down and go, right, I need to make this bit of content, here's what I'm going to do. If you had resource on tap that were part of your team that you could say just follow us about, film everything that we're doing, and then we'll collectively agree how we cut it and what channels it goes to and all of that fun stuff. So I get that. I guess it's just affordability. I've got absolutely zero idea what a videographer's salary range would be for a small and medium-sized enterprise. But not to skip too much of your story, so what was the first wee moment that you had where you thought, I could maybe go it alone here, you know, I could risk it all almost and do some of this on my own rather than just working in-house?
So, I know, given the name of the podcast, you know, I'm kind of not in a way, because it just never really came up in conversation, I suppose. But I just kind of made that decision last year. I was doing through G33 Media. I've been doing it for what, like 3-4 years now, and I'm still doing it now, even in this job, and that's why I'm here, obviously. But I'm in a very unique position where I don't think that'd be representative of what most people would get to do. Do you know what I mean? Doing what I'm doing. If you work for somebody, you work for them. And they don't want you doing things outside of work. They're very possessive or whatever. But the only reason I took this job was because he encourages it.
Aye.
It's like that's his business, is like helping entrepreneurs. So he's like, it's a bit daft for me to expect any of my staff to not eventually go,
Is he
what
Scottish?
have I done that? Yeah, yeah.
Aye.
But the way he sees it, his kind of philosophy is just, I'd rather have like great staff working for me with ambitions, and even if it's for a limited time, then so be it. But then people that are kind of, I don't know, just not really arse, they're just there to get a paycheck, you know. And that's just kind of how he's.
That's
looks
clever,
at it.
to be honest. 'cause
That makes a lot of sense to me.
I just think, you know, there's a reality which is that you're going to do it either way. You're either just going to do it on the fly and no tell him about it,
Yeah.
or you're going to do it with his encouragement and his mentorship. So, and as he said, I guess, even if it means that he's only got a year to 2 years with you, he still yields, you know, all the stuff that you've got to offer in that 1 to 2 years, and you feel motivated, engaged. You know, you almost feel loyal to him, I would imagine, because he is that honest and saying,
And it's
crack on.
interesting. It's a kind of fun job as well, because I'm going to Marbella in a couple of weeks with a bunch of them, and I get to, you know, basically go on a holiday for work, you know. But there's wee things like that, and I've been on like a private jet, which I'd never got to do in my life otherwise, and I don't know, there was wee things where I was like, I wouldn't have worked in any other videographer job in-house, I don't
You're
think.
going to need to tell us who it is now.
Get Richard Dixon.
Right, aye.
Right. So he's a bit of a Marmite character, so he is. But I like him, I get on with him. He's got his opinions on things. I'll disagree with him on things or whatever, but you know, if everyone agreed with their boss fully, I don't think anyone would be working. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing. Like,
Sounds like he's supportive of you, which is all you can really ask, I suppose. And I'm thinking about, like, obviously you've got this bit of a hybrid role, and I've seen a lot of your G33 work. I didn't even know that, to be fair, but it's really interesting. Thinking about actually videography and how you become or how you get into that industry. So if I was sitting here today going, right, I'm going to start my own videography business, what's the things I would need to consider?
So what I would do, and it's not necessarily what I'd done, but it's again the things where it's like what I would have done if I went back, is spec work.
Right.
You don't call it freebies, you need to call it spec work.
Right, okay.
So
Right.
the reality is, and I hate it, and I'll never do it now because I'm past that stage now. Like I've got the experience, I know what I'm talking about, I know what I'm doing with things. I'm going to charge people for the work. My time's worth something. But when you're starting, best way to do it genuinely is do what is it you want to do. You kind of have to discover as well, because that's actively what I'm doing at the moment still, which is kind of why I'm in this job as well. I'm still figuring out packages and things and what's the niche going to be. But when you're just starting, get any camera. You don't have to get something fancy. Every YouTuber that does camera reviews is going to tell you every camera is amazing because they're getting paid to. You know, they've been given the camera for free. You don't need a £5,000 cinema camera. You just need something simple. I started with like a Nikon D3400. It was like 400 quid or something. Still a few quid, obviously, if you're just starting, but you just need to find anyway, get any camera, basic mic, go out and do spec work. Just mail people, email them, message them on Instagram. Can I do you a video? Just or whatever. But you'll kind of find out doing that what sort of stuff you want to do, whether it's like property stuff. So you can quite easily do. There's a lot of companies that do property marketing, but it's all freelancers they hire. So that's maybe where the business I worked for first had a shortfall, where it's like if things dry up, they've got in-house staff and you need to just punt them because they can't pay them. But there's a company, it's like Vistabee, I think. But they pay buttons, mind you, but if you're just starting, it's like it's still paid.
It's a
so
good foot in
go
the
do
door.
stuff like that, for example. Discover whether you like doing videos for properties. Go to gigs, you know, if you're into music and stuff. Film a band you like's gig. Do you know what I mean? Like some small band or local band or whatever. Just anything like that. Anything that you're interested in,
like
go and see if it's worth what
It's
you
like
want to do.
portfolio building,
Yeah,
almost.
build
like
the portfolio.
Creating user cases that you can then put in front of the next person and say, what do you think of that?
Yeah, exactly.
And in regards to, obviously, you get either a cheaper camera just to get going. What about smartphones now? Would that get you by?
Yeah. See if everyone's got smartphones as well, so you don't really have that excuse either. You could get away with using phones. Like that's another thing I've seen that's starting to emerge as well, where people are training people to use iPhones. So it's like companies that can't afford, you know, $3,000 a month retailers, or even like £1,000 a month for video or whatever it is, or hiring a staff member in-house. It's like just getting started with it at all. Just use your phone. How to use the settings on the iPhone camera properly, because like the newest iPhone's ridiculous. Like the camera on that is very good. But that's another thing that videographers get insecure about as well, is like, oh, but I've bought all this equipment and I'm being replaced by a phone camera. If that's what people are worried about, if they're a videographer, they're getting replaced anyway, because they still need the expert to use it in the first place, whether it's an iPhone or an Arri Alexa that's like 40 grand or something like that. You still need an expert that knows what they're doing to make the videos for you, to think about the strategy, what's it actually getting made for, you know. So that's another thing videographers do, is there's a lot of talented guys that I know about, or like seen online, that are local or whatever. They're super talented video guys, but like they're not really I can't think they're really making money either though, because it's like they're just making pretty videos. And it's like there's no strategy or anything behind it.
So I've got some questions around how, like, what that strategy is about getting clients and stuff like that, but going back into my geeky side of things, so like, see if you're going to record a video, right, just any video, I'd imagine there's quite a lot of things you would consider. I mean, look in this studio, lighting is one of them, angles and all that. What goes into the thought process of making a video?
So how do you mean? Just
so like what components go into it? Because obviously there's the theme of the video, the content, what you're going to talk about in the video, but also the environment. Like what all goes into it? What goes through your head?
So the way I look at it is, it's like you get the whole thing when it's like, oh, I just need a 2-minute video, mate. So then I'm like, well, what's the 2-minute video going to be? Why is it 2 minutes? So a 2-minute video could be us sitting here. It's 3 cameras, all this lighting, you know, or it could be a 2-minute advert, you know, for a whiskey brand, where it's like, at the budget of that could be 100 grand, or it could be £500 for a 2-minute video. So you kind of have to delve into it. It's not just about runtime as well. Like what is it you're actually making this video for in the first place? And like a 2-minute video could just be you getting your iPhone at the desk and filming him for an Instagram reel. So that obviously affects what the cost will be. Do you need to crew it up? Do you need a 5-person crew? You know, do I need to bring an extra videographer in, like I'm doing for the job with you guys with the solar company? When is it being delivered? Do they need it ASAP? You know, that affects things as well. Do they need it in 2 weeks' time? Do they need it in 2 days' time? Is it a highlights video for an event? They need it the next day. You know what I mean? It's things
there's
like
loads
that.
Of different
that
layers.
all factors into it. You know, it's making a video, there's just so much to think about. Pretty much, it's crazy. You know, you can do a lot of the videos I'll do. There'll be no lighting because you're just on the go. It's like a vlog style, you know. So you don't set up lights, or if you're setting up stuff, you know, that could take you like 2 hours in some cases. You know, if you really want to make it like a proper, like, professional interview setup, you know. There's just so many things to think
different
about.
Layers. And a phrase we always hear, I only heard this phrase last year, B-roll.
B-roll.
Explain to a novice, what is B-roll?
So was that when I was saying it and all these?
No, I heard it before. But I remember hearing it for you as well. When we speak about, like, we know exactly what it is, but I think we know what it is, but I'd like to hear from an expert.
Sometimes I'll just throw out terminology like that to clients, and like that meeting we were in, for example, and then I kind of have to roll it back and be like, sometimes these guys are just like, what are you talking about, mate? Like, that B-roll is essentially like if you're watching like an advert or something, and say there's like a presenter on screen at the start and they're talking, and you can see them talking, and then it just cuts away to some random footage. That's B-roll, like the overlay sort of footage that they use. So, and does
it stand for background roll, or have I made that up?
I'm not actually sure. I always just assumed B just meant it's the B cam. It's almost like it's the backup almost. Mm-hmm. It's like your A camera is like, this is the main thing we're filming.
Right.
B-roll is like this is like the backup footage almost. That's kind of daft that I don't actually know what the B stands for. But it's just the kind of
term me. I was wanting
that people throw out. It's just, it's B-roll. We need to shoot B-roll and stuff. It's just so that you have. It's not just a boring. Hi, I'm Gary, and this is G33 Media. We make videos. Like it's actually. Oh wait. There's footage of like the Glasgow Cali ad we've done, you know, the whiskey company ad we've done. It's like, that's essentially what it is.
Got you. Cool.
I think TikTok's played its part in the that exploding, I guess, almost into becoming a forum that more like normal people know what it is. Like even me, to be honest, probably a year ago, if you said to me or spoke to me about B-roll, I would have been like, what's B-roll? I have no idea what that means. To me, it's just, I don't know, like in one hand, I know how it works, but in another hand, I'm like, just like, that's just helping feed into the whole, like, attention deficit. Oh God, I've fucked my words up there. But
attention deficit.
Attention deficit. Where it's like we need to design something that captures attention for like 3 seconds, and then it moves on to something else for 3 seconds, and you're like, is that fucking really where we're at? Like, you can't sit for longer than 1, 2, 3 and concentrate on one thing. But it is what it is, I guess.
Oh yeah, like that's definitely something I need to factor in when I'm editing stuff as well, is it's keeping people's attention. But we've almost like kind of damaged it to the point it's like just constant sound effects and all that. But I think it's just what it's for. I don't like to overdo it personally, because it kind of annoys me on a personal level as well, and I actually don't think it works in a lot of as much as people think it does, at least for what I've seen. Kind of stats wise, it actually kind of annoys people now and turns them off a wee bit, because I think people are starting to get a bit more educated on like how their attention span's getting destroyed and things. But I think there's a place for it. I think it's when it's like the first touch point and stuff like that, you want to your stuff has to be short, has to be quick. You know, if somebody's on YouTube and it's like the skip ad, you've only got 5 seconds to grab them. So there's stuff like that where it's the strip that, but that's where the strategy comes in, where it's like, well, what are we making these videos for? Where's it going? You know, is it going on Instagram? Is it going on YouTube? So for me, if it's going on Instagram, it's got to be under 90 seconds, you know, like max, pretty much. Or if you're running it as an ad, it can be a wee bit longer. But if it's on YouTube, I'm actually kind of the opinion, like there's a lot of people going back towards kind of long form stuff. Like this podcast, for example, people love podcasts. Like podcasts have never been bigger than they are, and you never watch podcasts that are 5 minutes long. They're always like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Like Joe Rogan, it's like bloody 4 hours if Joey Diaz is on. Do you know what I mean? So it's people want long form stuff. I think still. I think people wildly overestimate like how people just want everything 5 seconds now. I don't think that's true. I think it just depends on where it is what platform it's on.
So you touched upon it there, right? So let's say if we had a short form piece of content, what would you say, what length's a medium form piece of content?
Short forms, I mean, at the absolute max, 90 seconds. It's usually 60. YouTube Shorts is 60 seconds max. TikTok, you can make longer videos, like people do that, but usually they're short. Obviously, that's what the platform's designed for. But medium, I'd say it's kind of like almost like vlog style content, I suppose, would fit into that. So maybe like 5 to 15 minutes, something like that. So it's kind of undefined, I suppose. But long form to me is anything like over 15 minutes.
Over 15 minutes. Yeah. And if you were to go,
because that's a commitment.
Where do you think the best platform for each sits?
YouTube definitely is a long form place. I think you can also post shorter videos on it and they'll do really well. I mean, you can see that quite clearly if you go on there, but people go on there to watch long form stuff. I think because YouTube's like you sit down with your earphones in and you're committing a bit of time to it.
You're ready to get down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. There's like conspiracy videos, like horror story videos, or whatever it is. Like my missus watches, and she'll watch videos like that. They're always like an hour long. Do you know what I mean? So
long form YouTube. Short form.
I'd say short form. Kind of on every social media, you kind of need that entry point for people. You know, of like trusting your expertise, I suppose. If they've never come across you before, they're just completely cold to what you do. You kind of need to be posting short stuff to gain that trust. But it's when you gain the trust that they'll commit to a risking it all podcast or whatever. It's like, I like this Barry character, you know, like now I'm going to watch the full things and stuff, because I like their personality and things like that. You need to have short stuff though on social media. But I don't think it has to be pure noisy, though. I don't think it has to be constant effects and stock footage coming up, because that's the thing. It's like, I don't know if you've heard of Alex Hormozy. It's quite a big name now, with like the kind of entrepreneur sort of space or whatever. My boss went to his HQ in Vegas, and a big thing they were saying is like for all the they've done like thousands and thousands of videos, like tens of thousands of videos. And they do lots of shorts, but the thing they've found is like long form stuff does better almost.
Yeah.
But then their short form stuff used to be dead noisy and loads of stock footage and, you know, logos popping up and just noise. But it's like now if you actually go on his page now, all his shorts are just him on stage talking with captions, and that's it. Maybe a wee bit of music under it. But yeah, people don't always necessarily want battered over the head to watch a video. That actually, for me personally, and maybe it's because I spend every single day and that's my job as well, it kind of does my nutting personally, watching stuff where it's just constantly brrr and all that. Like, oh, you need to sign up to the... It's like, I'm just sick of it, because that's what everyone's doing. That's the trend now. But like, people don't want to see the same thing all the time. It's just going to keep going back and forth, I think, between that, where it's just... People just want... I think it all just comes down to that people just want value.
Yeah.
They just want something off you for free, basically. That's all it comes down to. It doesn't need to be noisy to do that, I think.
That makes
Just
sense.
delivering value.
I've got a question for you on kind of pulling it back, I guess, to any maybe budding videographers that are listening and thinking, right, I've got my kit, I've got my certificate, I've done a bit of portfolio work, I kind of need to find some people now that can help me pay the gig and keep the lights on, right? So you've touched on a couple of things that you've maybe done or continue to do to try and get yourself clients, but in your experience, and you know, I don't expect you to speak for the industry, but just in terms of what you've done, how do you go about finding yourself, like how do you put yourself in the room to speak to the right people to get yourself some decent paid work?
So my start was networking, and the big one is BNI. So I don't know about yourselves, if you've ever done any networking at all.
We've tried a couple of BNI chapters.
Yeah.
We're very niche in what we do, so it's we've done the chapter visits a couple of times and then came away and went, unless there's solar guys floating about these things, it's probably not worth our while. But
I'm not going to crap on it because I think that's a popular thing to do. But I kind of realised after I was in it for like a year or so, and it wasn't for me. And maybe that's my fault, and I should take responsibility, and that maybe I wasn't marketing myself well enough as the marketing person, or like my sales skills aren't good enough. But I think BNI's cracking for like tradespeople. Like, see all the tradespeople, they were always like absolutely raking it in pretty much at any like one of these groups I went to. But because of that, it was always quite what do you call it? I forgot the term. Where you've got your own wee cliques.
Cliques, I know what you mean.
People weren't, and then because I was like the 24-year-old at the time, or the 23-year-old in the group, and everybody's like middle-aged professionals, you kind of, there's an element of like there's people that don't take you seriously and things like that. And maybe that's you know, because you don't hold yourself seriously, but I'm just myself, do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, I'm not going to kid on to be something and put on a suit at these things to kid on I'm something I'm not. That's not what I do. And no creative is going about in a suit anyway, so let's be real. But yeah, it wasn't for me. But there is good networking groups, and it ultimately, BNI got me my first bit of paid work. So I'll always give it credit for that. But that was a funny one, right? Because the very first bit of paid work I done was for an estate agent who's brand new, by the way. It's not really a diss to him or anything, but I mean, just being like, right, so I worked in that job and it was 20 grand a year I got at the property place. So that works out about £10 an hour or something. So I'll charge £15 an hour, and that's better than that. I'm getting paid, 50% more. So then he's like, oh, I've got this property needing done. It's a 5-bed house. I'm like, brilliant. Right, 5-bed house, that'll be a belter of a house probably, right? It's a farmhouse. Never tick. That must be a cracker of a 5-bed house. What'll I charge for it? I need a video, I need the photos, and I need them the next day, sort of thing. All right, where is it? Dunoon. All right, okay. So I'll need to. So I thought I was bold asking for like the ferry ticket, and then he said yes, and I'm like, oh, brilliant! I got my expenses. Right, I got expenses paid. So I think it was something like 300 quid. I ended up charging, which is quite a lot for a property, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I'm balling here, like 300 quid. That'll be like 40 quid an hour or something. Was not, I think for start to finish, driving to Dunoon, I actually brought 2 people with me as well. Because see, the company I worked for, I was saying earlier, I was like, oh, it was always 3 years went, so that it was rapid. I'd never seen anything of this property beforehand. I just knew it was a 5-bed detached farmhouse. We got the ferry across for Dunoon. It was a big early drive. Me and 2 of my mates. One of them's a video guy. One of them was for my film course that I'm best mates with. And the other guy is the video guy who I do weddings with now, Paul. But he was raging. So he was. I'm just going to say, I know you were absolutely raging. I don't blame you, because I paid him like 50 quid or something. I don't even think Jack wanted money, my other mate. Which
he just wanted to game.
Yeah, but we went across on the ferry. We had a good laugh on the way there, but it's a long journey to do it on the ferry and stuff for like one job. But again, I'm thinking of this for the perspective of an employee. I've only ever been an employee. I've never been an entrepreneur. I'm like, oh, this is all free money sort of thing. This is the best amount of money I've made in a day in my life. And we got there, and the place was like a hoarder's house.
Was it?
Oh, shit.
And it was a proper shame as well. I felt really bad. There was like a wee old woman, and like her husband had passed away, and it was one of those ones where they need to offload it to get money or whatever. My mate Jack, who's brand new, man, he ended up chatting away to her and stuff, and then we both ended up cleaning up the house. But my mate Paul had the drone, so that's why he was there. Like, he was like, oh, I'll do the drone stuff for it. And then he just went and sat in the car. Just like, I'm going to kick this estate agent's head in. I don't blame you, mate.
So was that
it was just
a
like
lesson?
totally ended up being like a full day thing, when like a property's meant to be like an hour,
a couple of hours,
because it's convenient for the customer as well. Do you know what I mean? You don't want somebody going about your house for the whole day. You want them in and out for something like that. But it was a long day, and I think by the time I'd paid my mates, and like I say, it's like I made like £7 that, like, I was under minimum wage anyway. So that was like a big first lesson. I was like, no, you can't saying just because it's a £300 sounds like a great day rate. It's like, it's not really. You need to pay your ferry, expenses, which I got covered, so you know that was good. At least you need to pay the people that are coming with you, obviously, and I paid them buttons. I would never do that again. I always pay people what the going rate now, because that's important to me as well. If I've got any freelancers or that, it's like I'm not paying them like buttons. They're getting what their day rate is, or the industry standard. Do you know what I mean? That's got to be factored in. So
was there a lesson about like more preparation before going to a job after that one?
But need to ask way more questions, and that's a big bit of the process now. And it's like I was saying earlier about the strategy, where it's like, I want a video. Do you know what I mean? I want to get a video done. It's like, well, you really need to delve into why that is, because you might actually find there's been cases where I've said to them like, I don't think you need a video basically to do that. I think it's, and then I'll just give the person like some pointers on things, or they could do it on their phone. They don't need me to come out and do it. You know, there is things where it's like you can just do it on your phone. But and I'm happy to admit that, even though it's my livelihood almost. But I don't want to lie to people just to coin it in. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to. I think there's situations where you need to pay a professional to do it though. I think that's where it's underestimated for a lot of businesses. Like, there is things that you need to get done to make your business stand out. Do you know what I mean? If you're meant to be a big business that's professional and that, you need to look professional. You know.
Yeah. So. You mentioned about drone there, right? So I've got a few questions about drone. Me and Brian actually bought a drone, right? A 50 quidder for Amazon, and I think I spent a day flying it into the motor.
I try and land it on his head in the office. Like, that's about as fruity as I get with it, to be honest.
It must be bad because he can't even land it on that.
You can't take it outside. It's that flimsy that one wee gust of wind and it's gone. So
So regarding for like proper drone footage, right? No like us two idiots in our office trying to fly it about. How much does one of these drones cost, would you say, on average, for a proper one?
Well, my one, the Air 2S, was 1,100, I think. And that's the Fly More combo, they call it, where it's like it's got like extra batteries and different wee things and memory cards or whatever with it. But I don't think that's really the going rate now.
No.
They're constantly, that's the thing with cameras, right? And I was saying about reviewers on YouTube earlier, and it's like, oh, you need to buy this new thing because it's got 10-bit colour and 8K and all that. There is an element of that where it's like, try keep yourself up to date with equipment. If you're running like a full-on production company, you know, and you're working with bigger clients, you need to have like the stuff that can do good slow-mo and different lenses or whatever. But there's just, for a drone anyway, There's one that just came out, I think it's the DJI, same company, Mini 4 Pro. And you can get that for like 800. And that's still quite a lot of money to some, but if you're not doing it professionally. I got my drone mainly, right? I obviously needed it because I was doing it for certain jobs and I offered it as a service, but I kind of got it mainly because I just wanted it for fun.
Cool.
Put it through my business, obviously, and I was like, I'm using it for work, obviously, but I'm just like, it's just quite fun to just go out. I quite like, I've not really done it much recently, to be honest. I've just been so busy, but I quite like going hill walks and stuff. So if you take a drone up, if you're just somebody who's just like wanting to spend money on a fun toy, you know, I think it is accessible, but it's obviously still dear. But I think it's things like that are more accessible than ever now. That's the only reason I could get into it. If it was like 10 years ago and I wanted to do film, I'd never have been able to buy the equipment I did. I basically took all the money I earned for that 2 months working there and bought all my equipment, and I bought the equipment based on that's the equipment I used in that job.
Right.
So it cost like $2,500-3,000, which is a lot of money. But I was like, I need to go all in on it. You know, like I'm no finding another job because it's COVID. I'd applied for so much, and there was no video jobs. Like you're saying, nobody has videographers in house. So yeah, it's just whether it's like what's it worth to you, I suppose. And if you want it as a fun toy, then it's you can do it. But I would say, yeah, you can get them cheaper than $1,000 for sure, and get a great drone, definitely.
I think where my head was at there in terms of like pricing your services, that's a question. Like I'm in a lot of like school communities just with folk that do the same thing as us now, and that's one of the more common questions that I see is, how do I decide how much to charge? How do I price a job? And even for us, like when we started kind of scaling up and trying to work with larger clients, there wasn't, like, I won't bullshit you, for us anyway, there wasn't a huge amount of science behind the price. It was, let's keep increasing the price until somebody says, it's a bit much, it's a bit expensive. So it's like you pitch for one price, aye, cool, that's fine, all right. Next time it's 10% more, next time it's 20% more, and just kind of keep pushing until you go, that's the sweet spot. People are happy to pay that. Push any more, people feel like you're ripping the piss. Is there an element of that in videography, or is there more science that typically goes into it?
So that's one, if you're a videographer, every single ad you'll see, if you're following stuff and you have an interest in videography, is like, oh, value-based pricing. Guys, you're not charging enough, you need to be doing value-based pricing. There's pros and cons of it. I'm not doing that at the moment. The way I price, there's two pricing models, and the one I'm doing at the moment is just really simple, which is that I know how I've got a big pool of freelancers now that I use for different things, whether it's editing, camera operators, whatever, right? I know what all their rates are, and I know what the going rate is. I just price it literally like a tradesman would, you know, where it's cost of materials and a margin. That's all I do. But I think there's merits in the whole value-based pricing thing, where it's if you're going to like bigger companies, you know, and they've got budgets. Like, I think there's ways to spin it, but it's not something I do personally. But
so with value-based pricing, just to be clear on that, would that be you get paid a percentage of what it costs, or is that like a return on investment if they're using it for ads? How does it work?
Yeah, for an example, I had a guy who had like a start-up whiskey brand get in touch with us ages ago, and he was like, oh, I need, you know, I've put a lot of money in it. He didn't have like a distillery, because that's something that's like could cost millions to build something like that, but it's ones where like they'll usually label other whiskey brands. They'll I can't remember what the term for it is.
White labelling.
Yeah, almost. They have like
idea.
a special term for it in whiskey, where like, I never knew about it before, but all these big whiskey companies give each other casks. Obviously, they'll back and forth, but it's like they'll just stick their own label on it. It's like, oh, we need sherry cask that's 50% or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But that's how these guys get started, is they'll have different connections and distilleries. So anyway, he's spent the part of the question process. I'll always get people onto a discovery call, right? Because that's something I learned as well, is you can't just be like the Dunin job, where it's like, all right, cool, brilliant, mate, I'll take you to your work. It turns out a lot bigger than it actually is. But I'll get on the call, and it's just part of the questions is just like, you know, what's your goals with it, but in money terms as well, like what are you looking to achieve with this campaign? Yeah. So this guy, I think it was something like, oh, we want 120k off the back of it. So then your value-based pricing would be like, well, 10% of that is pretty reasonable, I would say. like 10 to 15% of that's pretty reasonable, was spend on the actual videos and stuff itself. So what, that'd be like 10, 15 grand.
Yeah.
The guy's like, oh, that's mental sort of thing. But then when you put it back in perspective, and it's like, where else are you going to get like an 8 times return on your investment? Because see, if I could get that, I'd pay 100. I'd pay 100. No, like 95 grand for 100 grand if I knew that it was going to get me. But that's the thing. Video isn't guaranteed, so you obviously have to scale it back. You can't be like, oh, if you're going to make 100 grand, we want to charge 70, because it's not guaranteed, obviously. But yeah, there has to be a element of reason to it. But then when you have that budget established, then you can go, right, if we have like 10 grand to spend, what can we do with that? But the guy just was like, nah, that's just mental, obviously, like, I'm not going to spend that, which is fair enough. Some people don't, but that is the reality that some people need to realise, is that you can't just hire some solo videographer for 250 quid for a campaign and expect to make 100 grand in revenue. Like, that's absolutely bonkers when you actually think about that for 2 minutes. Like,
we see that with advertising as well.
Yeah.
You know, people that want to spend £1,500 and think they'll conquer the solar industry. You know, it just doesn't
work like that.
You know,
you mentioned Alex Hormozy earlier. He talks a lot about this nowadays on his socials. In terms of, I think his viewpoint is, if you can sell something at 10 grand and you can sell something at 97 quid, sell the thing at 10 grand, because if you're selling anyway. And naturally there's an element that you need to prove the value, to your point, but you know, you're going to be a whole lot better off and probably have more hair or less grey hair selling the thing at 10 grand than you're selling the thing at £97. But I don't know why some people tend to I won't say shy away from value-based pricing, but they almost look at it as some sort of like dirty realm, like oh no, that's just mistreating people, or it's like pushing the boundaries of what you can yield to a customer. But that's capitalism. For me, it's just it is what it is. If you can, you know, ultimately you might say this will cost 5 grand, the customer can say no, I'm not paying that. Cool, right? You know, my price is my price. If you don't want to do business, then find yourself another videographer.
That's, and by the way, just to come way back to the whole, oh, by the way, I have a job as well as my business. To be more clear about that, that's part of why now, is that I took this job because the pros of it and the things that he was willing to meet my demands on, where I was like, right, that works for me, were good, and that I can still have that freedom. But it was also that I could really scale back and go back to the drawing board about how am I pricing stuff. Because see, if I'm being honest, that the timing of that job coming around as well, where I offered that, was I was like in the hole. Like I'd had like some really good months in a row, but see, when December, January, February came about, it was always 2 years in a row of doing it freelance, like nothing. I couldn't get anything. And then I'd always hear from people like, aye, January's a tough time. But then I'm kind of like, since that, I'm like, do you know what, I think it's just, if your sales skills are good enough, there's never a quiet period, do you know what I mean? But the thing I always found is that when I jumped on calls after Christmas with people, it was, oh, like, mate, I've barely digested my Christmas dinner. I don't want to think about marketing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'll do it next month. So that was always. It's
funny you say that. We found out that, didn't we, in January? We thought, oh, January we're going to smash it at the park, but it ultimately took 46 weeks for people to actually start
wake up
thinking
and go, right, it's the new year. I better fucking crack on.
Things.
I did get that to a certain extent, because you get to the kind of end of the year and everybody's like, oh, it's been fucking some year, I just want to wind down and enjoy a bit of time off. And then for me, it's not even coming back after Christmas. I come in on a Monday and I've forgotten pretty much everything that I've done for the last month, and it takes like a day and a half to blow the cobwebs off. So when you come back after Crimbo, a lot of these bigger clients in particular properly shut down. I think there's just an element of like, they need to get the machine up and running again, and then at some point they go, right, what are we doing marketing wise this year? Like,
but see, if you can get a business motivated or a client to do stuff in January, it's probably the best time to do it, because nobody else is doing it. Everyone else is going, oh, how was your Christmas for like 4 weeks? You know, like you should jump on that opportunity. That's why it's a good time to do it. But anyway, like I was saying, because I took that, it gave me the opportunity to go, do you know what, I need to go back to the drawing board. What am I doing wrong with the business? What am I overcharging? Is the stuff I'm delivering not actually getting results for people? Because I had a couple of regular clients that were basically paying all the bills, and then I was earning my wage off it. but it wasn't like quite VAT registered kind of levels, obviously. But yeah, they just eventually were like, oh, like I got on with them great, but it was eventually just like, yeah, we don't really need to do this anymore. But they were always nice to me about it, but I'm just kind of like, why did they leave? And it's like, is it because it wasn't getting results? Because I was just turning up and being like, my strategy before was like, oh, I'll do a package where it's a half-day filming. I seen a company running an ad, video guy, right? I don't know him personally, but I literally seen the ad this morning. It's like, we'll come in for a half day and film videos and take photos with you, and it's £500 a month. And it's like, if you're the business owner, it's like brilliant.
Yeah.
Right? But I was basically doing that for 2 or 3 different people, and I found all of them left. But it's because I'd never established boundaries as well. And all of them were brand new, like nothing bad to say about any of them, but there was never boundaries. They'd message you at 11 o'clock at night. There was no established deliverables either. It was just all based on I charge this for a half day. So again, it was the part of the whole thing, well, that's 50 quid an hour type thing. But I wasn't actually looking at it as an overall thing. But it'd be like, I would turn up to, there was one guy in particular, I'd turn up and we'd chat away and we're quite pal, and it's like, I've got 30 video ideas for this half day. Let's film 30 videos. So it's like a 2-minute video can get done in 2 minutes. If it's just the guy standing in front of camera going, this is what I do, and we'd do 30 videos one month. And then it'd be like, let's do 40 next month. But it's because, well, that's my fault. That's my responsibility. Like, if I'm in that guy's position, I'd have done the same.
Yeah.
Like, if some videographer's turning up, setting up the lights and camera, it's like, right, I want to bash out as much as I can get. There's no deliverables. Like, it's just, we're filming stuff. But that scattergun approach is just like, it doesn't work. At least in my experience. Maybe it will for these guys that have seen their ad, or for other people, because they'll get into strategy with them. But I was just turning on the camera and, like, let's film volume as much as you can do. But then it'd mean I'm spending like another 20 hours editing videos the next month that I wasn't, but I'm still charging the same. So I had to go back to the drawing board because of that. I took this job. It's gave me experience now at actually running a team. So I've got like an editor that works below us and stuff, and there's like an ads person, and I can kind of delegate things. So I'm kind of actively learning how to run a business almost in working a job kind of thing, I suppose, of like the kind of management stuff. So it's quite good in that way. But yeah,
I think like what I'm hearing there is it's different to no other business in that sense, in that, you know, client, even for us, right, we do a pretty good job, I'll go out on a limb and say, but client churn is just part of the model. We're always going to lose clients, no matter how good a job you do. Sometimes it just doesn't align. Either the results aren't produced, or the market isn't where it needs to be, or the client has something else going on, so they leave. Sales are the kind of be all and end all. When when you stop selling, you stop bringing new in, you lose one or two, you can find yourself in trouble pretty quickly. So it's like that cog needs to just never stop. And you know, that frustrates some people because they think, I'm not really a born sales guy or sales girl. It's a necessary evil is what we hear a lot, you know, with tradespeople in particular. They just want to do the thing that they're great at, but they go, that sales thing, I just need to stay on that. You know, and that's my experience. Is that no matter how good a job you do, you always lose clients. You just need to be on top of ensuring that you know there's a net positive in place, and that means that you can continue to grow. Do you think that, like, thinking about the personality, I guess, of some videographers in particular, like, I think sitting and talking to you for an hour, it's clear that you're potentially one of those guys that are blessed with both a bit of a technical mind, and you can actually sit and have a conversation and be pretty sociable. Not everybody that's really technically minded has that ability, and I would imagine then as a result suffer with sales. Do you think that a lot of videographers are in that position where they're great at the thing, but selling the thing is kind of what lets them down?
So that's something, like, I'm not like, I know what I'm talking about to like videographers out there, but like from my experience, videographers, you tend to be a creative minded person. Creative minded people aren't business minded. I've never been an entrepreneur, do you know what I mean, until technically recently starting this business. I was never like that person that's like, oh yeah, I was out, you know, like selling lemonade on a stand like I'm in America or something. Like, I had a paper round that my dad forced me into when I was like 12. And so, like, I've always had like a good work ethic because my mum and dad always put that into us. So, like, growing up in kind of working class areas, like, and then they got like quite decent jobs and lived in steps because of that. But they always kind of instilled that in me, that you need to work for every penny you've got, you know, and like you've got to go out and chase things. So I think that's something that's missing for a lot of people that are creative, and it's not like it's a bad thing. You do, if you want to run a business, you do need to learn that side of things. So that's kind of what I'm in the process of. I suppose I'm at a good stage now where like I'm quite confident, and I've had like my best month this month, you know.
Brilliant.
So, and like the month previous to that, and I'm not even fully, you know, in the business now. It's one of those things, like, and that's another thing for creatives as well, is you're very possessive of the work you do. So there's a lot of solo guys, and if that works for solo guys and they always want to be solo, that's great, that's for them. But for me, I'm like, I want to grow a business, and working that job has actually allowed me to, and it's forced me to, the whole cliche of like, oh, don't work in the business, you know, work on the business. But it's kind of allowed me to do that, funnily enough, because I can't always be there and always available to clients. Like, I'm doing my job where I'm helping grow this other business in-house, so it's meant that I've had to delegate things, you know. Like, I'll do as much of the work as I can myself personally, but it's kind of made me realise, like, all right, like, I can just do the sales side of things, I can do all the discovery calls, I could hypothetically hire camera ops to go do things, because the reality is, like, there's a lot bigger companies in Glasgow that are doing big budget video stuff, and they'll hire crews. The crews are never in-house.
Yeah.
And that was a barrier I had to jump over, where I felt like a fraud for hiring freelancers. Like, oh, I'm the guy that's doing all the sales, but then it's like, oh, by the way, it's not me turning up. But it's like,
as long as the quality's there, who cares?
And if you deliver the quality and you deliver what you've said, and you deliver the end result or whatever, that's business.
Nobody's really
going
to care, are they?
Yeah. But I always had that in my head. I'm like, oh, I need to be, and I'll be there. And like the job we're doing as well, I'm going to be on set for that, and I've got another couple of guys coming along as well for that project. But yeah, I just kind of had to get over that, where it's like, you're a bit of a fraud, and like, oh, I need to do everything myself. But it's like, you're a mug if you do everything yourself. Like, you need to eventually let go of some things. You need to, if you want to actually progress, you know.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And looking forward to that project we're going to work on, actually. Everybody keep their eyes out for that. But I suppose we don't want to lose sight of what do you have planned for the future for G33 Media then? What's coming?
I would love to, I obviously work with freelancers and stuff, but I would love to get it to a point where the cash flow is good enough, and I've got enough clients in-house that I could have a couple of people in-house, whether it's like a production manager, again, because that's what I've seen for interacting. I'll message guys with these bigger companies that are doing like 50k, 100k video projects, like EE and stuff. Was one of them, the guys I know that's a production manager, but they'll have like 5 staff in-house, but everyone else is freelance on the jobs, big crews. But I'd like to get it to that phase where it's like, it's not just me that's literally the only employee. I'd want to be able to actually get, you know, like create jobs, I suppose. But I don't really have the ambition to build like a 100-person creative agency. I want to stick to video, because that's another thing I've learned as well. Is I was thinking for a bit, maybe the way I can keep these guys is I'll do their social media, I'll run their social media, I'll run their paid ads. But I've realised now that I'd rather just work with guys like yourselves that actually know what you're talking about when it comes to running paid ads. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to making videos. I'll stick to that. Do you know what I mean? I'd like to partner. My ambition now is partner up with agencies, basically, to be their video people. That's the way to go. So ourselves, for example.
Well, we've got the first project under our belt together. Hopefully it's the first of many.
I'll have my hard hat on and my wee high vis and clambering a bit of roof somewhere.
Whatever you do not let us to anywhere near any drones that you bring on site.
I'll give you a shot. I'll give you a bit of drone training on the house.
As I said, I can land one in his head, no bother. So
that's quite good.
No, that's not an accomplishment when you look at the size of my curtain, but there you go.
Is that a Timu number? I'll see then.
Right, well, listen, mate, we've ran Spark at a time. I seen Cam giving us the 5-minute warning, I think 10 minutes ago. So it was great to speak to you. Really enjoyed getting a bit of an insight into videography. You know, for what it's worth, I can absolutely see the direction most smart business owners anyway are starting to get on board with the fact that they can't just ignore video forever. You know, it's like, if you want to garner attention to do more business, you kind of need folk that know what they're doing. And you know, a lot of folk are trying to get by with the old, like I do, speaking into a camera, that gets you so far. But one last plug for your business, I guess, just before we wrap up. Give people a shout on how to check you out.
Yeah, so if you want to start making videos, then give me a shout. It's Gary McLellan, g33media.co.uk, and Gary McLellan LinkedIn. It's probably a good place to message as well. But yeah.
Okay, mate, thanks a million, and cheers to everybody as always for listening in. Give us a like and a follow on all our socials as always, and we'll be back next week with another guest.
Thanks everyone.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.